Have you ever asked yourself, how many people do you truly need beside you after 70? It sounds like such a simple question, doesn't it? But the answer might just surprise you. Throughout our lives, we're taught that the more friends we have, the happier we'll be. We grow up believing that being surrounded by people is the ultimate proof of a life well lived. But as the years pass and the seasons of our lives change, something deep inside us begins to shift. What once felt so important, keeping up with every friendship, making every social call, attending every gathering, starts to feel a little heavier. Maybe, just maybe, after 70, you don't actually need many friends at all. And letting go of that old belief could be the very thing that brings you peace, freedom, and true happiness. This isn't a video about isolation. It's not about closing your heart or living a lonely life. It's about choosing the life you want on your own terms. It's about embracing simplicity, valuing peace over noise, and finding fulfillment within yourself. Today, we're going to walk through 7 powerful reasons why having fewer friends after 70 can actually make your life richer and lighter. And as we go, I hope you'll see that sometimes having less really does mean living more. Let's begin. First, you no longer need to prove yourself to anyone. Something remarkable happens when you cross into your 70s. The craving for approval just fades away. Remember when you were younger, always striving to fit in, to be liked, to be seen? Whether it was among colleagues, old classmates, neighbors, or even distant relatives, there was always a small part of you that wanted to belong. Maybe you attended gatherings even when you were tired, answered every invitation even when you didn't feel like going, laughed at conversations that no longer sparked any real joy, just so you wouldn't feel left out. But now you've lived through enough, survived enough, and grown enough to understand that your worth was never meant to be measured by the number of people who clap for you. Your value comes from who you are inside, not from who shows up at your birthday party. I think about someone like Mr. Samuel, a man I met not long ago, now 74 years old. He spent decades working as a respected architect, surrounded by colleagues, friends, and acquaintances. His phone used to ring off the hook. After he retired, he tried to keep up with everyone, arranging lunch dates and sending out texts just to stay connected. But eventually, he noticed something. When he stopped reaching out, so did most of them. At first, it stung a little. Was he not important to them after all those years? But with time, he realized the truth. Many of those friendships had been built around convenience, not true connection. And most importantly, he didn't need their calls or messages to feel complete anymore. He began spending his days doing what he loved, woodworking, gardening, painting. And he found a peace he hadn't known in years. When you no longer live to impress anyone, when you stop measuring your days by how many people checked in on you, something incredible happens. You start living for yourself, and that's where true freedom begins. As we move into the second reason, it ties beautifully into the first. Peace becomes more valuable than socializing. In our younger days, the noise of life was exhilarating. The buzz of conversations, the clinking of glasses at gatherings, the endless phone calls, it made us feel alive, connected. But as the decades roll by, many of us start craving a different kind of music, the soft hum of peace. Take Mrs. Lillian, for instance, a lovely 76-year-old woman I had the pleasure of speaking with recently. In her 50s and 60s, her social calendar was packed. Weekly brunches with friends, monthly book clubs, constant family gatherings. Her days were full. Her phone never stopped ringing. But as time went on, she noticed something unsettling. The conversations felt repetitive, the laughter a little more forced. Some friends spent more time complaining than sharing joy, and many gatherings started to feel like obligations rather than pleasures. One afternoon, after yet another lunch filled with gossip and rehashed stories, Lillian sat alone on her back porch with a cup of tea and realized she felt lighter, happier, and more at ease than she had in a long time. There, in the quiet, under the open sky, she discovered a deeper joy, the joy of simply being with herself, without the pressure to entertain or be entertained. That's the beauty of this stage of life. You're no longer obligated to fill every moment with activity or conversation. You can savor the quiet mornings without a buzzing phone. You can spend an afternoon lost in a book without guilt. You can enjoy your own company without needing constant validation from others. Choosing peace over pressure isn't about rejecting others. It's about embracing yourself. It's about recognizing that sometimes the most beautiful moments are the ones where you are simply present, with no expectations and no obligations. And if you've ever felt a quiet tug in your heart, a longing for fewer noisy gatherings and more peaceful mornings, let me tell you, you're not alone. You're simply reaching a stage where you value the richness of your own soul more than the noise of the world around you. Now, let's move into the third reason. Fewer friendships mean fewer disappointments. It's a simple truth that hits a little harder the older we get. Not every friend we've had along the way was meant to stay forever. Some friendships are beautiful for a season, but seasons change. And when we try too hard to hold on to connections that have already drifted, we often end up hurting ourselves more than anyone else. Think about Mr. Albert, an 80-year-old gentleman I met at a community center last year. He told me how, after retiring, he tried desperately to maintain all his old friendships from work, from his neighborhood, from his younger days. He would call, he would invite them out, he would send thoughtful notes during the holidays. But slowly, painfully, he realized he was always the one reaching out. And when he paused, when he waited to see who would call him first, the silence was deafening. At first, Albert felt rejected. Was he not important to them anymore? Did he do something wrong? But after some time sitting quietly with those feelings, he understood something liberating. He hadn't done anything wrong. Life had simply moved on, and clinging to relationships that no longer brought him joy was like dragging dead weight behind him. When you reach your 70s, you realize that you don't have to keep making all the effort to maintain one-sided relationships. You start to understand that it's okay to let go. You don't have to feel disappointed when someone doesn't show up anymore. You don't have to feel abandoned when a friendship fades. Instead, you focus on the relationships that truly matter, the ones that feel easy, mutual, real. And sometimes, the most important relationship you protect is the one you have with yourself. This brings us naturally to the fourth reason. Your time becomes more precious. When you're younger, you feel like you have an endless supply of days ahead. There's always next week, next month, next year. You spend hours talking on the phone, attending endless dinners, going to events that maybe you didn't even want to go to, because you believe there would always be time for yourself later. But once you reach a certain point, and many of us feel it sharply after 70, you realize that time is the most valuable thing you own. It's not money. It's not possessions. It's the irreplaceable, ticking moments of your own life. I think about Mrs. Dorothy, who is now 79 and living quietly on the outskirts of a small town. In her 60s, Dorothy loved hosting parties, big family dinners, game nights with friends. Her home was always bustling with life and laughter. But one day, after yet another full weekend that left her feeling more drained than delighted, she asked herself a simple question. Is this really how I want to spend my time? That one question changed everything for her. Dorothy began to be more selective. She stopped automatically accepting every invitation. She politely declined some gatherings when her heart wasn't in it. She stopped filling her days out of habit and started filling them with meaning. Mornings spent tending her beloved rose garden. Afternoons reading on her porch. Evenings watching the sunset in silence, just her and the soft whisper of the wind. Dorothy found that when she honored her time, when she guarded it as the precious treasure it is, her days felt fuller, richer, more vibrant. It's a beautiful paradox. By doing less, she experienced more. And that's the lesson for all of us. After 70, your time is yours. You don't owe it to anyone. You've earned the right to spend it exactly how you want. Whether that's with family, with close friends, or simply with your own beautiful self. Ask yourself, am I spending my days the way I truly want to? Am I using my precious time to create peace, joy, and fulfillment? Because at this stage of life, every moment matters, and you deserve to make every single one count. Now let's move into the fifth reason. true companionship comes from within. There's a belief many of us were taught early on, that we need people around us all the time to be happy. That without constant company, we'd fall into loneliness. But if you really listen to your heart after 70, you start to realize that real companionship, the kind that truly sustains you, doesn't come from outside. It comes from building a deep, caring relationship with yourself. I remember speaking with Mrs. Elaine, a graceful woman now in her early 70s, who used to fill her days with endless activities, bridge clubs, morning coffee groups, volunteer meetings, you name it. She once believed that if she slowed down, if she ever stopped saying yes to invitations, she'd feel terribly lonely. But one winter, a heavy snowstorm blanketed her small town and forced her to stay indoors for nearly 2 weeks. No meetings, no outings, no visitors. At first, Elaine felt restless. She paced her home, checked her phone a dozen times an hour, waited anxiously for calls that didn't come. But then, something inside her softened. She started reading the novels she'd bought years ago but never opened. She took long baths, listened to her favorite music, and wrote in her old journals. Slowly, she realized she wasn't lonely at all. She was peaceful. She was whole. Being alone and feeling lonely are two very different things. Being alone, when embraced with the right spirit, can actually feel like coming home to yourself. And when you become your own best friend, when you truly enjoy your own company, something extraordinary happens. You stop adjusting yourself just to fit into conversations. You stop watering yourself down just to feel included. You live more honestly, more fully. And here's something even more beautiful. When you are content within yourself, the right people naturally find their way to you. Not because you need them, not because you're clinging to them, but because your peace draws them in like sunlight through a window. And if no one comes, that's perfectly okay too, because you've already found the most faithful companion you'll ever have yourself. Now let's step into the sixth reason. Letting go opens the door to a more fulfilling life. Letting go often sounds like a loss, like giving up. But really, letting go is a kind of victory, a reclaiming of your energy, your joy, your true self. Take Mr. Franklin, for example, an 81-year-old former businessman who once had a social calendar busier than most people half his age. Lunches with former coworkers, weekend getaways with old friends, annual reunions. It never seemed to stop. But somewhere deep down, Franklin started to feel tired. Not just physically, but spiritually. The conversations repeated themselves. The get-togethers started to feel like rituals, habits rather than heartfelt connections. One afternoon, after a particularly draining luncheon, Franklin sat by the lake near his home and asked himself, "Why am I doing all this?" He realized he had been holding onto old friendships not because they brought him happiness, but because he was afraid of what it might mean if he didn't. What if he stopped going? Would people forget him? Would he become invisible? But then he thought, maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe disappearing from places that drain you is how you start to truly appear in your own life again. So Franklin stopped forcing it. He stopped saying yes out of fear. He started saying yes to what made his heart feel lighter. Fishing trips alone, learning how to paint landscapes, quiet dinners with his daughter and grandson. The space he created by letting go of exhausting friendships was quickly filled, but not with new obligations. It was filled with peace, creativity, laughter that came naturally instead of being squeezed out. That's the beauty of letting go. It's not about closing your life off to others. It's about making room for what truly matters. It's about understanding that not every relationship is meant to last forever. And that's okay, because every time you release something that no longer fits who you are becoming, you create space for something better to enter your life, or better yet, for your own soul to breathe freely again. So if you've been feeling weighed down, if certain connections feel more like chores than joys, maybe it's time to let go. With grace, with gratitude, and without regret. And now we arrive at the seventh and final reason. You become free to focus on what truly matters. When you no longer spend your days trying to maintain dozens of old friendships, when you stop filling your calendar with obligations and events you don't really want to attend, something magical happens. You finally have the space, the time, and the energy to focus on the things that truly nourish your soul. I think about Ms. Joanna, a bright 77-year-old who lives in a quiet seaside town. For most of her life, Joanna had been the yes person. She said yes to every invitation, every coffee catch-up, every volunteer commitment. She was loved, of course, but she was also exhausted. She spent so much time keeping up with everyone else that she had almost forgotten what she truly loved. One autumn, after deciding to take a social sabbatical, Joanna discovered something extraordinary. She began to wake up excited again. She took up watercolor painting, a passion she hadn't touched since she was a teenager. She spent long mornings walking along the beach, collecting seashells. She reconnected deeply with her grandchildren, not just through big family dinners, but through simple, quiet conversations about life and dreams. For the first time in decades, her days felt hers. And here's the thing. When you free yourself from the pressure to maintain shallow relationships, you don't lose love. You multiply it. You redirect all that scattered energy into places where it matters most. Your health, your creativity, your family, your dreams that still whisper to you even now. After 70, your life becomes your masterpiece, and you get to paint it with colors you truly choose. Not the colors society expects, not the ones friends guilt you into using, but the ones that make your heart leap a little when you see them. So if you ever find yourself wondering whether it's selfish to pull back, to say no, to protect your time and your energy, remember, it's not selfish. It's wise. It's essential. Because at this stage of life, you're not just passing time anymore. You're living it fully, intentionally, joyfully. Now, as we come to the end of this journey together, let's take a moment to reflect on everything we've shared. You no longer need to prove yourself to anyone. Your worth is built into you now, unshakable and complete. You realize that peace is more valuable than endless socializing. Quiet mornings and unhurried afternoons can be more fulfilling than any noisy gathering. You understand that fewer friendships mean fewer disappointments. Letting go of forced connections can protect your heart. You honor your time as the precious treasure it is, a treasure that should be guarded and spent on things that light you up from within. You discover that true companionship has always been waiting inside you, that when you learn to enjoy your own company, you discover a wellspring of happiness that no one else can give you. You embrace letting go, and in doing so, create space for a fuller life. And finally, you find the freedom to focus on what truly matters to your soul, your passions, your loved ones, your own beautiful story. You see, the journey after 70 isn't about shrinking your life. It's about distilling it down to its purest, most precious form. It's about loving yourself enough to choose quality over quantity, depth over noise, peace over pressure. And perhaps the greatest lesson of all is this. Happiness isn't about how many people you have around you. It's about how deeply you can live in your own skin, how peacefully you can sit with your own heart, how joyfully you can walk through each day knowing you are exactly where you're meant to be. So let me ask you now, which of these reasons spoke to you the most today? Maybe you're already beginning to pull back from friendships that feel heavy. Maybe you've noticed how sweet solitude can feel when you stop fearing it. Or maybe today, open a new door inside you, a new way of seeing your life, not as something that's winding down, but as something that's becoming more pure, more vivid, more deeply your own. If this message touched you in any way, I would love to hear from you. Please leave a comment and share what you're taking with you after today's conversation. Your thoughts, your reflections, they mean more than you know. And if you found comfort, encouragement, or a little spark of inspiration here, please consider subscribing and sharing this video. Your support allows us to keep creating heartfelt content that speaks directly to the beautiful, rich journey of aging with grace, wisdom, and joy. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. Until next time, may you continue to walk gently through life, holding your peace close and letting your spirit soar freely.